Welcome to the TikTok Boom podcast. My name is Natalie Potts and I'm invested in helping people love what they do in life and business to achieve greatness. Each week, I'll bring you an inspiring personal message to help you in taking action. Thank you for spending time with me today. Now let's go. Dionne, welcome and thank you for joining me today. It's absolutely lovely to have you on. Let's kick off with you sharing a bit about yourself and what you do.
Definitely. So my name is Dionne. I am a certified Rapid Transformational Therapy practitioner and a sabotage coach. So basically I help people, specifically business owners, overcome self-sabotage, and that can show up in so many different ways. It can show up as procrastination, perfectionism, binge watching Netflix all day when you plan to work on your business. There's just so many ways in which sabotage can show up. The main reason I got into this is because for 30 years, I was the absolute queen of sabotage, and I never even knew that I was doing it until I started learning about it. About a couple of years ago, maybe about a year and a half ago, I genuinely thought for so many years that I was just one of these people that no matter how hard I worked, I was just unlucky. And that maybe it was just like, I don't know, like fate or destiny, that I was just always meant to struggle. I was always meant to scrape by. Some people are meant to be successful. People like me were just not. That's really the way I thought for so many years. I now know that obviously that's not the case. And the reason I was self-sabotaging so much and keeping myself skint, keeping myself not very successful, keeping myself scraping by, it's actually because of a big part of that was because of the way that I'd been brought up. I was brought up in a very, very poor single parent household. I had it drummed into me that rich people were arseholes, that you've got like rich people were basically bad people, and that people like us were just always meant to always struggle, basically. And as a result of that, because when you've had something drummed into you so much, especially from a young age, your brain is very familiar with that, and the brain loves what is familiar. It hates what is unfamiliar. So familiar for me was scraping by, struggling, and just being pretty miserable. So that's what I did for 30 years. I started to learn about that, started to learn about sabotage and also about rapid transformational therapy, and learn that it's not the case. We create our own lives. And that's what's brought me here today. So luckily I was able to find that out, make some amazing changes in my life. And I thought, you know what, like I have to help other people with this, because there's probably still so many people out there who are still thinking the way that I used to think, who are sabotaging without even realizing that they're doing it. And I just want to kind of spread the word that it doesn't always have to be like that. So here I am today.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. There's so much within it, and I've noted quite a lot down there. And it's really interesting. I guess what's resonating most to me is probably the opposite, where it's something that hasn't been my life in terms of being drummed in what I can't achieve and have, I guess. It's the opposite. But like we know that our brain doesn't know what's right and wrong with what our beliefs and everything. So we believe what's true to us, and our influences and our upbringing, it absolutely stems that. And I guess mine's a bit the opposite. And what's really interesting though for that review is you're absolutely right. We love what's familiar, and we don't like change, and we find it really, we hate being uncertain. What for you though, you said like you now know, but what was the point in terms of yourself being open to the change and facing into the unfamiliar? Because people know what they need to do sometimes, but they don't know how to do it, or they're not open to the how to do it in terms of taking the next step because of the fear, etc. So what was probably maybe some of the fears, but also that moment as such, or maybe it wasn't a moment, but the points where you were like, let's just see what this could be, because you're having to push a lot aside in terms of beliefs.
Yeah, definitely. And I wish I could say that the growth was linear and that everything just got amazing one day, but it absolutely wasn't. So I first started learning about self-sabotage in particular. Like I said, I think it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then like quite naively, I was like, right, that's it. Like I now know about it. Now I'm going to change it. And there was definitely like parts of my life that started changing. Like I invested in my first business coach, and that had some amazing changes. Like my income definitely jumped up. Certain things in my life started to get a lot better. But then for a while, and even still now, I'm not the finished product, and I would never pretend to be, but I would still find myself kind of going backwards. So I would take a few steps forward and then a few steps back. So yeah, I wish I could say it was linear, but it took a lot of pushing myself out my comfort zone. I mean, even now, I'm still aware that I've got certain money blocks. There's still certain income goals that I still haven't hit yet that I really want to hit. But now I'm just more aware of when I'm kind of like sabotaging myself. Like, for example, one of the things is when I started learning about self-sabotage was money blocks. And a lot of the time we can have money blocks. We can stop ourselves from making money, even though we really want to achieve that. So I became aware of that, but then it was still showing up in ways like I was so terrified of launching any new programs that I just didn't. I just stayed away from it. So even though I was totally aware that I had these big money blocks, I was still too scared to launch anything anyways. And that kind of, it took quite a while to build that up. I'm now just about to do my third kind of ever proper launch. But yeah, I've very, very much had to really push myself out my comfort zone. Sometimes had sleepless nights, and I've sometimes thought, what the hell am I doing? This is too scary. So it definitely hasn't been linear. I'm a lot better now, but there's been a lot of educating myself, sometimes taking a few steps back because of fear. But I think now, because I'm so aware of it, it's happening less and less. But yeah, I wish I could say that it was just like an overnight thing. It definitely wasn't. There's been a lot of learning. It's definitely been a journey.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that part around one, that growth isn't linear, because it's not. And
yeah,
you just have this term in the corporate space where like the jungle gym, and you won't just naturally, like years ago when I was coming through the ranks, I did actually accelerate just linear really, really well. And then it got to a point, it was like, it wasn't that way. And it was, you had to go through taking away perfectionism, understanding yourself more, looking at, that maybe the growth was going to be more challenging because it was deeper work.
Yes.
So yeah, and I guess the older you get, the more you're challenging in terms of you're challenging yourself to change certain behaviors that are very ingrained, and actually like the things we don't learn at school, what's underneath that and unpacked, and the beliefs that we have, and looking at why we have those emotions and what those emotions are hooked to, etc. So it's not, like you say, just it's very linear. And I think I also like what you say, because I see this a lot out there, and I'm always challenging like the conventional and such, but it's, just keep going forward. Whatever you do, don't go backwards, just one little small step. And I was like, I just think that's absolute bollocks, because I do go back. And I think, we connected before, obviously jumping on today, but part of the rapport between us was very much that I understand what RTT is. I've done rapid transformational therapy myself twice in terms of having it, and I've explored many different types of therapy, and RTT's definitely been up there. And I think, but even though it's an incredibly powerful process, and it almost sometimes looks like it can promise the end goal, 3 sessions, job done, again, we're complicated as humans, and it's not that. And you've got to understand that the same as even with a coach. I think people look at a coach and just think, as much as we want to retain clients, which we do and running businesses, but we also want the best for them. And it's not just going to be one coach that can give you everything. And we've got to be open-minded on that it is that point that sometimes don't necessarily feel, because you're going backwards, it's everything is lost. And then it's oh well, so what? Oh well, I might as well, I've had a really bad food day, I might as well just blow it and have the whole food day. It's that attitude. and it takes, exactly like you said, it is taking that huge awareness to constantly check in with yourself and say, just slow it down and just meet myself where I'm at, and what does it look like, what I need to do next. And almost, I think the therapy part is it brings power in, again, your awareness and understanding of how you tick. And a lot of people don't face into that enough.
So true, so true. And it is like, I think we just have to realize it's all part of the journey. Like you said, like we're very, like humans, like we're very, very complicated. And it would be amazing if we had the knowledge and then it was like, right, that's it, I'm fixed now, or I'm totally healed now. But we're very much like onions. There's a lot of layers to us. I mean, God, like I like rapid transformational therapy. It really was such a life changer for me. But I still have sessions on particular issues that crop up now because, like, for instance, and not speaking on behalf of like everyone, but with my life, I mean, there was quite a lot of trauma there. There was a lot of, like you said, very, very deeply ingrained beliefs. I think that the biggest kind of negative belief for myself, as it is with many people, is having this feeling of not being good enough. Now, I had that for 30 years. And I wish I could be like, I had one session and that was completely gone. Like, there's still parts of it that I'm working on now. And it is just now I'm a lot better at when I do catch myself. For example, last week, I knew that my launch was coming up and I started to get all of these feelings coming up, which I hadn't had in quite a while. I kind of, maybe a bit arrogantly thought they were completely gone. But last week it was these feelings of, oh my God, what if it fails? What if no one signs up? What if I've got all of my messaging wrong? But I was able to catch myself doing that and being like, do you know what? It's normal. It's normal. I have the fear. It's bullshit because I have sold out launches before. Of course, people are going to buy. And even if they don't, it's still going to be a lesson. I'm still going to be able to learn from it. But that's the big thing now. Like, no one is ever going to be the finished product. And I think we see this everywhere on social media. They're selling the dream and it's all about, I'm living my best life now. Now I'm completely healed. Everything's amazing. And it's like, it's a nice kind of dream to sell, but it's not real. No one is ever going to be the finished product. There's always going to be things about ourselves that we can fix and that we can improve.
Yeah. Explain a little bit more around rapid transformational therapy, because I've said, I've had it and the amazing shift it's made in your life. Explain a bit, and I'm very happy to share like how I found the experience, but explain what it is and the benefits of it.
Definitely. So the best way I would say the easiest way to explain it, and then I like to explain it, it's basically like hypnotherapy, but on steroids. Yeah. So where you've got kind of like a standard kind of hypnotherapy session, it's a lot of they're kind of talking to you. Like the therapist is more talking to you, giving you all of these suggestions, blah, 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 blah. With rapid transformational therapy, it's actually the client. So it's you who is doing a lot of the work. You're leading the actual session. So what tends to happen is I'll put you into hypnosis. I'll walk you down the steps. We'll get you there all really, really nice and relaxed. Then what tends to happen is we'll go back to several scenes from where you tended to, from where you picked up a particular belief. Let's say, for example, if you came for RTT for, say, money blocks, you were struggling to hit your income goals, we would go back to a few scenes, which is all to do with the root, the cause, the reason for you having those particular money blocks. So one that came up for myself when I did a session on that was, when I was 3 years old, my mom was speaking to me. So she was always on benefits. And she was in the kitchen speaking to me saying like, Dionne, we haven't got enough money. The benefits, we're not getting enough money. We haven't got anything. We can't afford food. And that was a big thing that stuck in my head. So from a very young age, I had then picked up the belief of there's not enough money. And without even realizing, I had then carried that for so many years. So what we do is we'll go back to the scenes, find the root, the cause, the reason for where you got those beliefs, and then we can reinterpret them. So the belief that I changed was, well, of course, there's more than enough money to go around. And just because, say, my mom didn't have any, it doesn't mean that I don't have to have any. So we can really change the meaning that you picked up from those particular events. There's also a big variety of tools that we can use as well, dependent on what comes up from the scenes. So one of my favorite tools that I love to use is called RFPI. And basically, so let's say if you picked up a belief around money and you've got a money block and it's stopping you from making, I don't know, say you want to make 10 grand a month, and for some reason you're just never able to hit that. So we'll go back to the part of you that came up with this money block, and we'll actually talk to the part, like, so why did you come up with this part? Why did you come up with this money block? a lot of the times the beliefs that we come up with are actually there to protect us. And it sounds crazy, but for me, money blocks was like, right, so money's bad, but like rich people are not nice people. Money's bad. If you make money, you're going to get judged. Because another thing that people would say to me, like my mom would say, like, who do you think you are? Like when I was trying to kind of like do well when I was in my early 20s. So I picked up a belief of that. If I do make money, I'm going to lose my friends and family. People are going to judge me. They're going to think I'm a snob. So I best not make any money, because at least if I stay skinned, then I'll still have my friends and family. So a lot of the time, these negative beliefs are actually there that like they think that they're looking after us. And it sounds crazy, but I would say like 99% of the clients that I've had, like the negative beliefs they pick up are actually trying to help them. The brain thinks that they're trying to protect them.
Yeah. It's interesting experience, and like you shared there, you go down the steps and you're in that. The way I would explain the experience is like, I remember having moments where I had thoughts of open your eyes, and you just cannot open your eyes. And it's like being in a limbo, like something like Sixth Sense, where if you could imagine yourself standing next to your body and you can just see yourself lying there with your eyes closed and this person next to you and asking, like you said, talking you through things. I think it's certainly an experience where you need to be open-minded, in that when I remember points when she'd say, we're going to take you back to a time in at this stage or whatever, and I was like, no, it's not going to happen, like nothing's coming up.
Same.
Literally, like, well, whatever. And then suddenly just this moment comes back and you are literally there to the point that you feel what is almost the unconscious stuff in what's probably holding you back. That's what you feel. So I remember talking about a scenario in work. I absolutely hated my career at the end of it, corporate, last year, and part of the experience was talking through that, I felt no, I lie, actually. This was back in January 2021, because I was just about to lead the end of a 6-month redundancy program. So it was the first thing to have done through COVID anyway, to make 30 people redundant just after Christmas in 2021, and practically on my own, and it was horrific. And I just remember one day I was like, I need RTT again. I need to just talk to somebody that isn't related, that just allows me to talk and look at what's going on here. We've actually no idea what this could bring. And it's a very emotional experience. I remember the first time I did it, like literally you just break into tears at points. Like, what's around that? So she took me to a time when I was in a certain place in work, and I remember lying there and just like my hands feeling like tense, very anxious, my body like being really clammed up and feeling like, no, don't touch me, just give me my space. And, just that anxiety, which I never really ever massively struggled from anxiety, but I did in that scenario. And it was all coming through. And it was like, what's it telling you? And it got quite emotional. It's like, I just hate it. I hate what I'm doing. I hate the person I am. And I just want out of it. And I think it's that inner voice that you almost sometimes don't want to listen to, that wants to cry out, and you're allowing that to come through. And it was really interesting. And then she took me back to even younger years, when I was really young at school. And there was a teacher that was like, she was a cover teacher, and I just automatically got up to go to the toilet, and she shouted at me, and I sat down. And then she came and stroked my hair, and she was like, I'm really sorry. Like, she knew she was sorry, but she didn't say sorry, because we were allowed to do that with other teachers. So because I've been shouted at that, and I was like it was just unnatural to me. And again, that whole feeling, that defensiveness, that don't touch me. And I have a really weird thing around space as well. And people, when they're, if they're not very close to me, don't know me, getting in my space, I'm very funny about it. So it's about, sometimes it's exploring why we are how we are, where that come from, and not necessarily bringing change, but like you said, the awareness to, do I want that to change? And what's it actually, is it holding me back in things? Is it holding me back in certain relationships where I might not be like open to just give me space, and someone doesn't understand that? So it's an amazing experience, but it's certainly not easy either. And it's not like, that's the part I think that sometimes there might be occasions where it's weight loss, or there's sometimes where it's maybe they save you smoking, you can give up in 3 seconds and stuff. And that might be very different people. And again, like people at different places in their journey. But it certainly was very powerful. It's probably been the most powerful therapy in terms of always drawing back to it's still in my life.
Yeah, same. And like you said about the emotional aspect as well, like I said, like some issues that people will work on with RTT, it's more the kind of like lighter stuff, and like you said, like stopping vaping or smoking. But some of the issues, if you've had this kind of like deep-seated belief of, say, I don't feel good enough, or I feel different, or I feel like love isn't available to me, and some things like that, we are really like an onion, and it takes a lot of kind of exploration, and it can be heavy. Like it was so fun. So after the first ever RTT session I had with an incredible therapist, she was actually the one who inspired me to get certified. I was a virtual assistant for this lady for ages. I was snot bubble crying during the session. I felt exhausted after it. I even screamed, "Fuck you," for 5 nights. I kept waking up in the middle of the night and screaming that for 5 nights after the session. And I messaged the therapist. I was like, "What the hell is going on?" And she just said, "Well, clearly you still had a few more fucks to give, Dionne." And I was like, it's like the way that the mind works. Like it's fascinating. Like there's so much that goes on in our subconscious, and obviously it's the subconscious, we're just not aware of it, but it's honestly it's really powerful. And I think that's what I love about RTT compared to, because like you, I mean, I've tried loads of different therapies, and I know they can be so incredible for so many people, and so many people swear by them, and it's changed and even saved their lives. Personally, for me, I kind of felt like I was going around in circles, and I was just talking about the same shit over and over again. Had a bad childhood, blah, 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 blah. But I was still sabotaging. I still felt very stuck. I was still doing a lot of reckless, very dangerous behaviors, all because I didn't like myself. In fact, I hated myself for years. And then when I did the first RTT session, it was like, all right, this is why I feel the way I do. This is why I believe that I'm not good enough. Like, and it just kind of, it was exhausting. It was heavy work, but suddenly a lot of things just made sense, which had never really made sense before. And it is just kind of having that awareness. And I have it with clients now. I'll check in with them. And like I said, no one's the finished product, but it's so amazing when I have clients and they're like, well, I catch myself now. They'll say, so I caught myself like negative thinking or telling myself that I was stupid the other day, but I caught myself doing it, and I was able to talk myself out of it. And even that can just be an absolute game changer, catching yourself with that negative thinking, or catching yourself before you're about to sabotage and do something daft, basically.
Unpacking a bit about the sabotaging though, and the behaviors. If someone's not really sure on, like you said, you probably weren't aware of it at one time, and thinking about, is that what I have? What are some of the behaviors that maybe you experienced or that you've seen in others in terms of where it's not helped them, and that the actual behaviors of self-sabotage?
Definitely. So some really common ones, and again, these are all ones that I did without even realizing for so long. Procrastination, perfectionism, so never getting anything finished. So having total like shiny object syndrome and thinking, right, I'm going to set up this business, I'm going to do that, I'm going to create that project, starting it and then never finishing it. Undercharging, keeping on really like shitty clients who make you miserable, but you keep them on because you don't feel good enough, and you're like, well, I'm not going to find any other clients, so I'm just going to keep them on, even though it makes you miserable and it saps up all your energy. Avoiding launching anything new, which was, like I just said before, something that I did, or even this was one of my favorites, dropping out of a launch after 24 hours when no one buys, because you're like, right, no one's bought within the first 24 hours, right, I must be shit, I'm a failure, so I'm just going to ghost my audience before they ghost me. What else is there? There's loads of that. Like I said, planning on working on your business all day on Friday, but waking up and instead just binge watching Netflix all day. Even things not related to business, like saying you want to lose weight, so you're going to have one slice of the cake, but instead you end up eating the whole cake. binge drinking, I mean, that was a big one for me. I love to escape my feelings with binge drinking.
Yeah.
So I had all of the best intentions in the world. I would say, right, I'm going to have one drink. And then I ended up 2 bottles of wine later, doing absolutely nothing the next day. And for years and years and years, like that was my biggest sabotage, definitely, was the binge drinking. So there's just so many ways that it can show up with like with the money blocks as well. Like I said, undercharging, never raising your prices, because you're like, well, even like so many people will keep the same prices for years. And I mean, we know what inflation's looking like at the minute, but a lot of people will think, well, I'm not good enough, no one's going to buy from me, so I can't raise my prices. I'm terrified to do that. So you end up working your ass off, working all these long hours, but you're still never hitting your income goals. So there's so many ways that sabotage can show up. And like I said, so many of us will go through life and for so many years literally not even realizing that that's what we're doing. It's ourselves keeping ourselves stuck.
Yeah. And I think the ones for me I always drawn for, which was definitely workaholic, that I was constantly working hours, never put my work phone down, everything. And it's one of my biggest struggles now, is to slow down. Definitely a struggle. And helping others was probably a big reflection, and I learned that through grief recovery, actually, in terms of, which was slightly different to therapy, but looking at the fact that I like to help others they call it helpers hire, to feel good.
Yes.
18 months working as a volunteer with Shout, which is like a Samaritans, which was amazing because I wanted to give back, and I truly believe in volunteering in some way. So the way I do it now is I do a lot of, sometimes I'll give a certain amount of time each month to just coaching pro bonos, because actually it's in the business and what I love, and I get a bit of a drive from it too with helping people, but it's angled more until I pay attention to things, the right things. So I looked like stuff like Prince's Trust, and then it just came about, and I was like, that looks like a great fit. Did the training and then did 18 months with them, and it was an amazing experience. But because you want to feel that sense of, you want that dopamine kick, and that's what it is. But actually then I noticed that when you're constantly helping others like that, you don't actually move yourself forward either, and you have to I had challenges around some work a couple of months back when I was working with my personal development coach around empathy and that, and being empathetic for others, but you've got to be empathetic for yourself. It's the same as like giving, that if you stop somebody from giving to you, you stop the flow. You want to give to others, but if you stop someone backwards, and it seems simple when you think about it, but it was that moment I was like, it's absolutely true, isn't it? When you act like the one that goes, no, don't worry about me, just do it for you stop that other person from doing it. So the same with empathy, you've got to allow and be empathetic with yourself, and you've got to allow others to be empathetic and all of that to continue that. So it's that was definitely one of them, helping others. Drink was a major one last year. I think, and I was talking about it the weekend with a partner, that drink is, I think it's, I don't know if it's more than years ago. I think it's in heightened for sure, like any social thing does. That I think is, especially even, lockdown probably might have created that more. Domestic abuse is up for sure. It's a way of instantly numbing emotions. I think that's because it's so instant in that. Even probably more than food is, that, food was definitely one with my fitness routine, but I think it was more around the idea of just an intense fitness regime. And again, it was, the fitness was that keeping the mind going, like there's something in my mind that has to just keep going 24/7, which is I have to find other ways of just being calm, is more my seeking thing now.
Definitely.
But drink definitely knows it. So I know that through my own work, therapy and time and reflections, those are my biggest challenges, and I think they'll always be there. I don't think I'll knuckle them 100%. And I think that you have to feel okay with that, in that, like, you've got the awareness, but also, like I said, it's that part of, this is where it annoys me when people are like, oh, just keep going forward. It's like, I do go back on them sometimes, like I want to, but I think I also know behaviourally, black and white doesn't serve me, all or nothing, and I can be game over. So this idea of, when I look at, and this is where, as we know as coaches, language is so powerful. And I remember being challenged with a therapist back in March, and I was like, bored. She was like, what's bored to you? And I was like, lazy. because it's a belief from somewhere that if I'm bored, I'm lazy. That's what it is. That if I sit just watching TV and I'm not on my phone or doing something else, I'm lazy. And I don't know where that's necessarily come from, because it's definitely not my parents. And again, so it's when you say I don't know, it's I've got to explore that in time, but it's not overnight. And
Definitely.
And actually, yeah, it's and then it's tapping into the fact that I can just watch a movie, and it isn't that I'm lazy. You know, and I can. Bored's a good thing. It's good, like we said, to switch off over the weekend and do nothing, because you're probably going to come back more creative, and you're going to have had time to think and a moment, and we just don't allow that in the world. And I read a great book last year by Lost Connections by Johann Hari. It's a phenomenal book.
Right.
And he basically goes into researching a lot around the idea that we don't just need meds for depression. Because I've been signed off at the time last year with depression, but it was more around the fact that I was drinking a lot as well. And they were like, "We're not putting you on meds." They said nip the drinking in the bud, because that's important. And it was more around the work side of things and everything. So it wasn't as violent as I think we can, depression, we can think this stuff, but it certainly wasn't, a great place. And I learned that going for walks, and he said it in his book, there was so much around just getting out and having the space and time to think on my own with no distractions. And I was looking at it, and I was researching, I Googled it, I was like, why is it that nature is such a big thing for us, and why do we talk about it so much, but I don't think we embrace how powerful it is. And it's because just the distractions, our minds aren't set to be on a go as much as we are, or as much as what technology and this life dictates of us nowadays.
It's not normal. It's like normal. I was I was thinking about that this morning, like funny enough, on my walk this morning with the dog, and I've started watching on Amazon Prime Vikings, and I mean, it's pretty violent, but it's brilliant. But I was thinking, like, in many ways, like, oh God, things were just so much more simple back then. You're farming, you make your own food, that's it. And now it's like we sit down for like 8 hours a day, we're staring at screens, then we finish work, and then we go and stare at another screen, aka the TV, for another couple of hours. And it's so not normal. We've got TikTok, which is turning everyone's brains into scrambled egg. Everything's about instant gratification. And like, no wonder more people now than ever like are getting depression and anxiety. It's like, it's such a weird, like, unnatural world we're living in right now. And when you do go out into nature, like, my favorite thing in the world to do is I get up first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock, I'm out with a dog. We've got a beautiful nature reserve, like, just round the back. And I just love it. I don't even take my phone with us. I just absolutely love it, because there's just nothing there, and it's just that peace, and we don't get it enough these days.
No, I completely agree. I've got what I do on a podcast when I have guests on us, I always ask somebody a question from the time before, and then I'll ask you to leave a question. The time before was, we were talking a lot around authenticity, and kind of even it's such a buzzword at the minute as well. But also not taking away the fact just because it's a buzzword that what it does mean to people and how it plays a part. So what does authenticity mean to you? That was the question.
I would say being yourself, warts and all. I think these days there's so much kind of stuff online about trying to make it out that your life is so perfect and everything's amazing and it's all rainbows and unicorns. For me, being truly authentic is just being like, look, this is me. I'm not the finished product. I still make mistakes. I still wake up some days and have shit days, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it is just being yourself, warts and all, just not putting on this kind of facade that everything's rosy all the time, because it's not, and that's all right.
Yeah, I get that. What would be a question you would leave?
Oh my goodness. So what about self-sabotage, or about
anything you like? Anything.
Oh wow, okay, put me on the spot. Let me have a little think. Okay, what is the main sabotaging behavior you recognize in yourself right now?
Brilliant.
Because we've all got them.
Yeah. What can people do in terms of relating it to the coaching as well that will help them move forward, whether it's in life and business, if they know they've definitely got self-sabotaging habits?
So you mean if they're a coach?
Yeah. Or what can they do? Well, it doesn't even have to be they're a coach, but how can, because obviously you shared that you coach as well. So how can you have the blend of the two in terms of somebody understanding they've got some self-sabotaging habits, but using the idea and a process of coaching that it's moving forward from that. So you're not staying in those self-sabotaging habits and you're looking at the way forward. What can people do?
So I would say, like, to make yourself first aware of it, have a think, like, what do you really want in life? Like, write it down. What do you really want in life? And what are you doing that's probably stopping that? Like I said, for instance, with me, it was like, I want to make 10 grand a month, I want to make 10 grand a month. And I could never, ever bloody do it. So I had to really sit down and be like, okay, like, why am I not there yet? Okay, well, because I was charging at the time clients 15 quid an hour, or because I was keeping on these awful clients. I have a think, what do you really, really want in life? And have a sit down and think, okay, like, why is it that you haven't achieved it yet? What are you doing that is stopping yourself from doing it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. I love that. And where can people connect with you?
So they can connect with me. So my website's going to be going live today, actually, finally, which is Dionne-Slater.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Dionne Slater, or Instagram, Dionne_Slater_. Just type in my name and you'll find Dionne Slater.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your honesty and your shares as well. And your energy is great as well. I love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and inspired you on your journey. Make sure to share this with a friend and subscribe to the podcast. I really love hearing feedback from you, so leave a review and let me know what part of this episode resonated with you the most. And now it is time to go take action, make a difference, and have a great day.